You know, as Wynton says in the film, it's the story of Cinderella. The person that you keep out of the ball, keeps away, is going to end up being the belle of the ball. It's going to change the way Artie Shaw is. Artie Shaw at one point in our film says that I had a choice. He said I wasn't happy with my life. I had a choice between getting a machine gun or getting an instrument. And he got an instrument.
Wow.
And that's the sort of story you want to tell, the kind of connection that you want to forge with it.
Some are describing this as Ken Burns' American trilogy, Civil War, baseball, and jazz.
It is, and I wish I could say I planned it from the beginning. I did the Civil War. It's the defining moment in American history. As I was working on baseball, I realized that I was working on the sequel to baseball, which sort of surprised me. That if the Civil War defined us, we tend to see our history as a political military narrative, you know, wars and generals and presidents, and that's it. And we forget that so much of who we are comes from other things that are going to ooze out of things like baseball, you know, race, the nature of heroes, popular culture and advertising, great cities, you know, all the wonderful things that baseball carries along in its wake. Two things happened while I was working on baseball that convinced me that it wasn't this moment and a sequel. I gave a speech about the Civil War, and Wynton was sitting in the front row, and after it was done, it's like 91, just after the Civil War came out, he said, you know, you should do something about jazz. And I kind of went, yeah.
This was 91?
91. You should do something about jazz. And I'd been using jazz music. I didn't know much about it. I'm a child of rock and roll and R&B. And I worked in a record store for 4 years, and I knew all this stuff, but it wasn't my music. But I was beginning to use jazz more and more as the soundtrack to all these American subjects. It was working. It is our soundtrack. So he says that thing. Then we do an interview with Gerald Early in baseball. This unbelievable thing, he says, that works its way into the introduction of baseball. He said that when they study our American civilization 2,000 years from now, we Americans will be known for only three things: the Constitution, baseball, and jazz music. And I'm going, he's saying that the genius of this country is in improvisation. Constitution's 4 pieces of paper, that's it. Baseball's a simple children's stick and ball game with infinite chess-like combinations. And at the heart of the only art form Americans have invented is this notion that I do not have to play the notes on the page. I can play who I am, and in telling you honestly who I am, that will be the art, and that will be an amazing American art. And when you realize that the themes that I've been interested in, particularly race, are all brought along. Because the great, wonderful poetic justice of jazz is that the only art form Americans have invented that will commend us down through the years to posterity in the best light is a music born primarily in a community that has the historical memory of being unfree in a supposedly free land. You know, as Wynton says in the film, it's the story of Cinderella. The person that you keep out of the ball, keeps away, is going to end up being the belle of the ball, and that what jazz affords us is an opportunity to touch not only the soul of our country, but what we might become when we live out, as Dr. King said, the true meaning of our creed. So it was a trilogy that insinuated itself and said, you have to do it. And so by 94, when I was finishing baseball, where jazz music made those central episodes of the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s come alive, the trilogy was in place.
As you make these films, what's changing other than the subject? I mean, you're older, you're more experienced, but does anything change? You're telling stories about something that is uniquely American through the visual elements that are possible and through the voices that are available.
I give up. You found out my secret. That's it. I've been making the same film over and over again. I've been asking this deceptively simple question, who are we? You know, somebody asked me, what are you working on now today? And I said, I'm working on Mark Twain. And I thought, you know, well, jazz is about the nature of America, the nature of American creativity and race, among many other things. Would you agree?
Yes, of course.
Well, Mark Twain is about the nature of America, the nature of American creativity, and about race, among many, many other things. So in some ways, it's the same field we're plowing, but each story affords a different perspective. It's like spokes on a wheel. You want to get into whatever that nub is of information, and you can go at it different ways. Just like, you know, art's not the only way in. We invent religion, we have science. We've chosen within art that there's this documentary film style that you can sort of pursue these questions, these American questions.
We're going to see in a minute Louis Armstrong. The two greatest jazz artists from America are Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington. no, yes. It's debatable. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter, but they're great. I mean, they're at the top of the food chain. You're not going to go no higher than them.
Yeah. Nobody's above them. Nobody's above them.
Yeah, nobody's above them.
Somebody may be with them, but nobody's above them.
Right.
Having said that, from your own brain, tell me about Louis Armstrong. Tell me about Pops.
Just an original, a man of a deep spiritual feeling, the highest level of musical intelligence. He grew up around a lot of great trumpet players, and he played a lot better than all of them. He played what they wanted to play. And he never lost, he understood that the value of humility. He knew he was a genius, but he understood the value of humility in terms of always learning and taking things in. He took in a lot of love, he gave out a lot of love. And just an unbelievable presence, and everybody imitated him at one point. Singers, instrumentalists. He just represented something so great. McCoy Tyner once told me, man, Louis Armstrong was a king. So, you know, that's what he said.
And if he said it.
He said, you figure McCoy was playing with Coltrane. They were playing modal music, and it's supposed to be so ultra-modern. He said when Louis Armstrong came to see them in Chicago, that they were so nervous they almost couldn't play. So then between the sets, he and Elvin and everybody greeted Pops, Louis Armstrong, and Pops said, yeah, you boys got good tones. He said, it made us feel so good, you know, whether he liked our music or not.
See, that tells a story that I love so much. He's coming to see Coltrane. And they all know, so many of this story is connected.
Right.
And if you do a thematic approach, then you have to separate jazz and segregate it into everybody's style. And you can't figure out how Charlie Parker is connected to Louis Armstrong. But when you tell an American story, then you know exactly how Charlie Parker is connected to Armstrong.
Roll tape, a scene from episode 4, The True Welcome, about the influence of Louis Armstrong.
He was the first to refer to a musician's skills as his chops.
How does jazz mirror the African-American experience?
Well, in many ways. First, the organization of the ensemble. The people all improvising off of a bass, which is something that's African in origin. Then in the ability to take a thing that's a standard and change it. The best example today would be something like basketball. What Naismith invented is not what Michael Jordan and them were doing. They took the fundamentals and they changed it and improvised it and made it much better through showing how you could use your skill and your personality and your originality to inside of the boundaries that are set to expand the limits and the possibilities. So you look at it and say, like the skyscraper. You knew we could build buildings, but you didn't know they could go up 50 stories. So you say, oh man, is that what's possible? Charlie Parker, as a musician, when you hear him play the saxophone, and people could play the saxophone, but not like they never could just that fast, that quick, that many.
That's what it was. It was
ideas.
so fast and so quick and so to a different.
It's just the Afro-American people had to adapt to the circumstances in America, and also the element of competition. When you have someone telling you all the time you can't, and making it so that you can't compete, and you have an arena that you can compete in, and that arena is music. Whereas you could have been the greatest in baseball, but you weren't going to play with the whites. Or in business, or in any of the other fields. If you're a doctor, you're going to be a black doctor. But in music, that wax. And all of these things that existed. Somebody playing on the radio, you couldn't segregate the airwaves.
Or someone said, wax knows no color.
It knows no color. And the trumpet, when Louis Armstrong started playing, trumpet players all over the world wanted to know, man, how does he play that? And people had to tell him, wait a second, he's a we don't like him. But if you're a trumpet player, you say, well, you don't like him, but I play trumpet.
I like him.
Whereas in business, you know, you wouldn't see him.
So he says in 1991, jazz. Why does it take until 2001 for this to appear on the air?
Well, it's taken 6 years to make the thing, and I was
6
in
years to make this?
the middle of baseball, or the beginning of baseball when we met, and it wasn't really till I was most of the way through baseball that I actually knew. I mean, the head decides, but it's not until the heart decides that you're actually going to commit 6 years to doing something like this. And it was coming to the end of baseball and realizing that I could not do it. I mean, people say, how do you choose your topics? I said, they choose me. I mean, this music came up and just said, you have to know about it. And it's better for me if it's a process of discovery. If I tell you what I know, it's going to operate at one level. If I share with you what I've discovered, and I meet new friends, and I make new friends, and I talk to all these people, and work with somebody like Jeff Ward, who's been, you know, so unbelievable, the great writer of this, then there's a possibility that the 6 years, by the time it comes out, is really about something.
But when you, I mean, this is a no-brainer, isn't it, to do jazz? I mean, because you've got music, you've got great stories. With it, I mean, what could be a possible reservation about taking this journey?
No reservation.
You just didn't know that it would take 6 years?
Except that, no, I knew exactly it would take 6 years. In fact, I predicted, you know, almost to the day when we would put the thing out. But it's having the courage, you know. This is a huge undertaking to take what is essentially 1,000 hours of stuff that we collected and trying to winnow it down and tell the stories in 10 episodes across 150, 200 years of American history.
I don't want to flatter you, but it is amazing that this young white filmmaker who had no great grounding in jazz could come up with something that everybody, most people that
I had help.
know, love. I know you did. I know you did. But that's something, doesn't it?
It's not amazing. His race is not what makes it amazing. This is 2000. It would have been amazing in 1870. Well, they didn't have to do it. It would have been amazing in 1930. But I mean, he's a great filmmaker. He knows.
No, I don't mean about race as much as about experience with jazz. You know.
Well, he's very diligent. He got everybody in rooms. I mean, this is like a serious undertaking. He's so serious and diligent, and works. He burns the midnight oil, and he's very serious. And this is the point that I always make, even though it seems like it's so simple that it's almost a put down, but the desire to do the amount of work with integrity, to get people of different viewpoints. He has people in the film, like he has people that don't get along with each other, different viewpoints being presented. He's balancing a lot of information. He has his vision that he's adhering to. And what it takes to weave all of these things together and create something like this is really an unbelievable feat of balance and an unbelievable amount of work. And you know, that's what he's known for doing that. So I knew when he said he would do it, that it would be the greatest thing ever done on jazz. There was never any doubt.
When I decided to do it, the first thing I did is I went to Wynton.
Is that
and
right?
I said,
first call is?
First call.
It had to be because he...
Well, I went over to his apartment and I just said, I want to do something on jazz. He said, I'll do whatever you want. And I said, I'd like it very much if you could like submit to an interview. It won't take too long. He said, I'll do whatever you want. I said, and maybe we could be in a consult. He said, you're not listening to me. I'll do whatever you want. And I have to tell you that was the best trip I made because, as you know, Wynton suffuses this series and brings to it, I mean, talk about integrity and diligence. That's, you know, you can pick that up from this man.
But there were a lot of people involved, you know. Like I said, we went up to New Hampshire. It was a whole house of people working day and night. Everybody's like a huge enterprise, and they're working for years on this.
Yeah.
And his ability to, how he fixes it. One thing is done a certain way, and they say, oh, we don't know about this. You come back and you see it. It's a totally different thing. The decisions that he makes are such great understanding of form, the form that he's dealing with.